Hello, and welcome back to my take. The Mission Impossible series has definitely had its ups, and certainly its downs, over the now 7, soon to be 8 movies. But one movie, above all of them, stands out to me as the best in the series. Not only that, but it's also a movie that's a worthy candidate for the title of being one of the best action movies of all time. And that is Mission Impossible 6, also known as Mission Impossible Fallout. Now, the Mission Impossible series began its resurrection with 2015's fifth installment in the franchise, Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, under the helm of director Christopher McQuarrie. He previously worked with Tom Cruise on films such as Jack Reacher, Edge of Tomorrow, which I'll be covering soon, I'm excited to announce, and was even involved in rewrites of Mission Impossible 4. Rogue Nation is a great movie in its own right, as is Fallout's sequel and most recent entry to the series, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. But Fallout, for me, just remains a cut above the others, and in this video I'm going to break down the key elements of what makes Mission Impossible Fallout so special. I think an obvious place to begin with an action movie is to talk about action. Now, in my John Wick video I discussed what makes a good fight scene, but I've yet to discuss action more generally. All the Mission Impossible movies, but especially this one, involve a significant variety of action. In Mission Impossible Fallout alone, there's a halo jump from a plane, an epic fight sequence in a bathroom, a motorcycle chase and car chase through Paris, there's a rooftop chase through London, and a climatic, let's just call it a helicopter stunt for now, as there's so many different elements to it that I'll break down in a minute. And on top of this, there's loads of other shootouts and additional bits of action, and overall a very gripping story. The variety in these action sequences is what makes these films never get old. Upon viewing John Wick Chapter 4, for the first time in the series, I found myself getting a little bit bored in some of its action sequences, particularly as they are considerably lengthier across the film than in earlier movies, and a part of what induced a sense of monotony in me was the fight scenes in that film were very samey. Lots of shooting and judo throws, but that was really about it. But what the Mission Impossible films do differently, particularly this one, is have a very diverse range of visual spectacle for the audience to watch, and it prevents the possibility for boredom because the audience is never watching Tom Cruise do the same thing twice. Now, the action itself is very special in these movies too, and the driving reason behind that can be boiled down to two simple words: practical filmmaking. Many modern action films, especially the superhero genre, now rely heavily on CGI green screens and effects to create their action sequences. And don't get me wrong, when done well, they look pretty damn cool, but there is something that just feels different when you're looking at the real thing, especially if the audience knows this is real in advance. This is in fact a key part of the marketing strategy for the Mission Impossible movies. For instance, as press for Mission Impossible 7, they released a 9-minute video on YouTube showcasing how Tom Cruise really did do it, and did it 6 times in fact, and that was jump off a cliff and parachute down after riding off it on a motorcycle. Crazy, right? And similarly, for this movie, the cast appeared on the Graham Norton show during filming to discuss Tom's injury from his rooftop jump, as well as how the helicopter scene was put together.
The end of the sequence or the beginning? I think we've got these pictures the wrong way around. I think
I can't tell you that right now.
Okay.
It's part of the secret.
All right, well, I just think this might be out of the wrong... Because
so there's Henry hanging out of the helicopter.
There's
right
Henry back there. That must be after this next bit, because this next picture, you're on the outside, so someone must be flying that helicopter. It can't be... Please tell me you didn't get out of the helicopter while it was going. So that's you. I mean, and that is you hanging off a helicopter.
What's fascinating about this movie is that the things you see are real. Tom Cruise is genuinely putting himself in danger for the sake of his art. And now, yes, I know it's all rigorously, and I do mean rigorously, planned to be as safe as it possibly can be. In fact, from watching the video on the bike jump, I came to the conclusion that most of the production team aren't actually artists, they're engineers, because they're the ones that are able to make the impossible possible through their work. But even despite all this planning, there's still a risk associated with a lot of this stuff. Tom's ankle break from his rooftop running sequence is proof of that, and I must credit his dedication to get up and keep running to finish the shot.
That speed, that momentum, here we go.
Look at...
And now watch that, watch this. Here is why Tom Cruise gets paid the big bucks, okay? Because This is it from the front angle.
Oh, I broke it instantly.
So you're down. Now, anyone else will go, well, that's over. No. Up he gets, and he's running.
All of these action sequences are challenging in their own ways. Even something that looks a little bit simpler, like Tom Cruise riding a motorbike through Paris, comes with layers of complications. Whether it be the fact that in order for the audience to know that it's him, he isn't wearing a helmet. The fact that some of the streets in Paris have cobblestones and therefore make the bike less stable. The fact that even though perception is somewhat cleverly meddled with, Tom Cruise is still riding a motorcycle through oncoming choreographed traffic at 80 miles an hour plus. It only takes one of those drivers, or Tom himself, to make a mistake, and that would be the end of Tom Cruise. The bathroom fight is another example of genius filmmaking that may go unnoticed to the viewer. For starters, the whole room is made of rubber. Don't believe me? Watch this.
He's not just like snapping his ribs in that shot.
He's rehearsed it probably 100 times with no mirror. Not to mention he's padded up where he's gonna hit. And then also I'm guessing that thing is rubberized. A lot of times what they're gonna do in a big scene like this is that they literally make like insulite, which is very thin but dense foam, and they'll cover the entire ground and make it look like tile, so that when Henry Cavill hits the ground, not only does he have pads on, sometimes they're even sewn into his clothing, but literally the floor is completely padded.
There's a part where Tom Cruise collapses onto the urinals. I'm wondering if you can see an indent where his knee pushes down it. Can you see it?
Oh, yeah.
Can you see it push down?
No, yeah. No, it's a pad. Look at this. Look at that knee. Boom.
Yeah, it squishes right there.
Yeah.
The fight was originally planned to be shot over the course of 4 days, but instead it took 4 weeks. Do you know why? Because everyone involved wanted to get it perfect. And that's the reason I have so much respect for all the talent involved in these movies. They're striving for perfection in order to create the best art possible, and that's something that I absolutely respect. The halo jump at the start of the film is another very impressive sequence. Tom Cruise is no stranger to skydives, but even just thinking about how many times they would have had to rehearse it and choreograph it, with the cameraman to be in the right place to shoot the scene, is something very impressive. Also, fun little movie fact for you. For whatever reason, Henry Cavill wasn't allowed to make the jump, even though his character, August Walker, does. Hence why the script has Walker's helmet fog up to disguise the fact that it isn't our boy Henry under there. And if you're wondering how they filmed that shot as a one-take shot, I'm showing you that on the screen now. But there's one sequence to rule them all when it comes to the sheer level of coolness, excitement, and effort, and that is this movie's helicopter sequence. Now, there are many parts to this that are noteworthy of praise, whether that be Tom Cruise hanging off the bottom of, I think it's a pile of rocks or something. I don't actually know what's in there. If anyone has any ideas, let me know in the comments. Hanging off the side of the helicopter, or, for me, the most impressive part is when he's flying the helicopter. This has to be one of the most elaborate sequences performed in a movie, because Tom is having to fly the helicopter in at times pretty dangerous ways and do acting at the same time. And the cameras are mounted to the exterior of the helicopter.
While most aerial chases you'll see from a helicopter, we don't usually turn the cameras in. So we've developed these rigs over the last couple of months where we can basically hard mount cameras to show that Ethan Hunt is flying the helicopter without anybody else.
I'm not entirely sure if Tom is controlling them too, although given that the actors of Top Gun Maverick had to sort their own lighting, makeup and camera whilst in the planes, it's likely the case that Tom Cruise was operating the cameras here too. And we know from Tom that much of this sequence was him testing ideas for Top Gun Maverick.
How were these cameras? And you could see an American made in Fallout developing the technology, thinking about it.
Having flown a helicopter myself, I can tell you that the slightest inputs have major effects on the direction that the helicopter is going. To my incredibly limited understanding of physics and engineering, helicopters are inherently unstable and therefore are constantly in a state of trying to maintain stability. There are parts of this sequence where Tom is having to showcase that his character, Ethan Hunt, isn't particularly familiar with the helicopter's controls, nor is he able to fly it smoothly, given he's being chased down by August Walker in a second helicopter. So in order to make it look dangerous and exciting, it means Tom has to actually be dangerous in the helicopter, and he has to try and feign losing control over the helicopter. This being done for real over New Zealand mountains, which are doubling as Nepal in the film, has the potential to go very wrong very fast. And I'm sure Tom Cruise would correct me if he ever saw this video, not that he ever will. I would imagine that he would consider the helicopter stunt to be the most dangerous part of making this movie, and it certainly looks it. All the hard work and dedication poured into this scene and every sequence in this film is ultimately why I love it so much. This film is incredibly exciting to watch, and I personally find it all the more exciting with the knowledge that so much of it is done for real. Even if you're not an action movie person, it's basically impossible not to respect this movie, because the level of dedication and hard work that went into it is truly phenomenal. I think that's something I really like about Tom Cruise films in general, is they feel like movies. And I know that's an incredibly dumb and unprofound statement to say, but I can't really explain it in many more words than that. Tom Cruise movies feel like events. They're not what people could ever term as content, which is becoming an increasingly used word to describe the state of modern entertainment. Much of his filmography feels properly movie-like. They're events to go and see and behold and be in awe of. Top Gun Maverick is a prime example of this, and is again another video on the way soon. I'm currently going through a bit of a Tom Cruise movie spree, if you couldn't already tell. But what's fascinating about Mission Impossible Fallout is that it goes further than delivering some top-notch action, because the screenplay of this movie is equally majestic. The pacing of this film is excellent. It never lingers on anything for too long, but holds scenes out when they need to feel tense. Some of the most notable moments of this for me are Ethan Hunt's conversation with Solomon Lane, and a lot of the scenes between Ethan Hunt and Vanessa Kirby's character, Alana Mitsopoulos, or the White Widow. One of my favourite little details in the screenplay is where Ethan, under the guise of John Lark, is plotting with the White Widow to extract Lane from police custody. The implication made is that Ethan will have to kill all the police in order to succeed. Now, the way this is shown to us is interesting, because we witness the scene play out before it's revealed that this was merely Ethan imagining how this would go down. It's a small subtle detail in the screenplay, but it's a way of toying with the screenplay's reliability as a narrator, because in that moment the audience has the opportunity to actually think or perhaps question whether Ethan truly did go through with this brutality in order to extract Lane. Speaking of Lane, not only is he incredibly well played by Sean Harris, he's a superb foe for Ethan Hunt to face, because he represents a psychological threat, as well as someone with the capacity to commit physical atrocity. The movie makes it clear that Ethan was affected by his encounter with Lane in Rogue Nation, and this is done from the opening scene in which Ethan is dreaming of marrying his wife Julia. Before Lane interjects in the dream, it's actually a very intriguing sequence to open an action movie with. If we think back to Rogue Nation, that opens with an action sequence with Tom Cruise hanging off an aeroplane, or Dead Reckoning opening with a slow but tense submarine scene. These feel more conventional openings for a film of this genre, but Fallout opens with a scene that can almost be described as a very mild psychological thriller. In fact, the dream sequences, and we'll include the scene of Ethan imagining killing the police officers as a part of this as well, are actually a few shades darker in tone than the stereotypical action film of this nature. And I think that is something that adds to this film's feeling slightly different to the other movies in the franchise. There's more depth in the plot, and there's more depth to the ideas suggested in the plot. Lane's opening marriage vows quickly descend into something far darker.
To shield from terrors known and unknown, to lie, to deceive, to live a double life, to fail to prevent her abduction, erase her identity, force her into hiding, take away all she has known.
Stop.
In a selfish, futile, fleeting attempt to escape your own true self.
Please, stop.
Will strip away the sparkle of a Mission Impossible film and incorporate deeper themes and consequences for Ethan's actions. I also like the nostalgic element to this film by bringing back Julia, and this nostalgic quality is something that is doubled down on in Dead Reckoning with the return of Kittredge and Gabriel. It just ties the franchise together a little bit, and I really like that quality personally. Performance-wise, this film is excellent across the board, but special mentions go to Vanessa Kirby, who is absolutely superb as Alana Mitsopoulos, aka the White Widow, Sean Harris as Solomon Lane, as mentioned earlier, and Henry Cavill in one of his few films where the man is actually used really well. I often feel Cavill is deeply underused in many of the projects he's in. He's a very talented actor, and it was really refreshing to see him play a villain as well. And even when he's further undercover, the arrogant, cocky persona of August Walker is something that I haven't seen Cavill do very much of before, so it was fun to see. Also, I can't mention Cavill's performance without the moment that broke the internet, of him reloading his biceps. It's single-handedly so cool, and no matter how many times I try to replicate it in front of my own mirror, it is impossible to replicate. Fun fact about that, it was Henry's idea, not in the script or anything, he just did it in one of the takes and everyone loved it, and hence how it managed to stay in the film. And obviously, when it comes to actors and praise, we have to give some to Mr. Tom Cruise himself, who is often termed as Hollywood's biggest star, and movies like this just show why. His dedication to his craft, not only of acting, but filmmaking in general, is pretty much unparalleled and deserves a great deal of respect. Also, I don't have much to say about it specifically. Lorne Balfe's score is excellent too, and brilliantly adds to this movie's intensity. Overall, so many elements of this movie just clicked into place so perfectly, but none of that would have been possible without the extreme levels of hard work and dedication from all the cast and crew involved. And if this movie isn't able to justify the need for a stunts category at the Oscars, then nothing will. So that was my take on Mission Impossible Fallout. So if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and please do like and subscribe if you'd like to see more from this channel. Thank you.